What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Christ in Capital, the show that wants to encourage you to love God, love neighbor, and build something. I'm the host, Dustin Johnson. I am so excited about today's episode. I've been wanting to get this guest on for a while, and I'm super excited. At first, we're going to complain a little bit. We're going to complain about some news items, but then we're going to dig into kind of entrepreneurial discussion, side project thing that's going on. So I'm really excited. Before we get started, I want to encourage everyone to go over to goodfightoutfitters.com. Get yourself a Christmas present for a friend or for yourself, whatever. By the time you guys are hearing this, there won't be much time to put in orders before the cutoff for Christmas deliveries is. So go do it. Do it right now. Okay, let's dive right in. So my guest today is Alexsy Felix, the podcast host of Chaos or Chaos and Christ, not Chaos or Christ. And also the creator, the entrepreneur, the owner of Chaos Resistance Fitness. And so we're going to talk about that later on in the episode. But Alexsy, can you just kind of give us a rundown? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, I am just a man who loves Jesus, who's a father and has a passion for truth, freedom, God's word, and that's it. That's all I bring to the table. Yep.
That's right. Yeah. And we're going to capture all of that stuff in a recording that's going to live forever.
Sounds good, man. So let's do that.
I've always joked about how like archaeologists in the future are going to be just coders.
You know what? I mean, yeah, because they're gonna have to dig this stuff up digitally and find it and discover. Yep. So that's actually a good analogy to think about.
Yep. There won't be Indiana Jones will be a guy in a suit tie and at a computer. But yeah, okay. So let's dive in. So when I first got introduced to your podcast, I just basically binged every episode. Because and the reason is because I think your podcast stands out because you are you're doing something kind of similar to what like the Shapiros and the Bonginos and all those guys do, but you are like rock solid. It's Christ or nothing. Like it's biblical worldview or nothing. And what I love about that, and what I love about creators like that, is that we don't make any sort of like we just don't think that Christianity can stay in your heart and in your mind, right? Mm-hmm. It works its way out in the world, and it has boots on the ground. It has implications for what we do here in the world, right? No matter who you are, no matter what you do, your worldview is going to come out in some way. Okay. Yeah. And so that's what I really loved about your podcast, just hard hitting and just kind of a heavy hitter in the Christian worldview arena. And so I wanted to bring you on and I wanted to talk about this whole Balenciaga fiasco, faux pas issue. It's kind of a scary thing. What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, man. I have many thoughts on this stuff. And to me, it's I guess it's not surprising. And yet I can still get a bit of some culture shock from the whole thing, right? Just because it just gets more wicked, more demented as just time progresses.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, this is also something that I guess we should have all been prepared for and understood was on its way, right?
Yeah.
We have been bombarded with a lot of new agendas that have been under the surface for a very long time, has peeked its ugly head out in the last 2 years, and it's on full force with an agenda to come after our children. And so, so with Balenciaga, I did see it, I read it, and then I knew we were going to have this conversation. So I dove deeper. It's insanity. The photos that they had with these children. And then not just that the children are there, not just that they're holding a BDSM teddy bear with bondage gear and a padlock.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if it doesn't get any worse for you there, then I really have to question what's happened to your psyche at this point. But then you get deeper and you look at all the things that are on that photo, and there are some really sick, deep symbolisms there that you just can't ignore. And it's just insanity to pretend like it's not there. Like it's just some sort of like, it's just a beautiful artistic thing that people do. It's like, but every artist has a deep meaning behind what they do. So
let me share with the people that are listening to this, there's a little clip I pulled up. It's 1 minute, just so it's kind of a rundown of the whole issue, just so we're all on the same page, because I think that'll be a good kind of starting point. Been a while since I used Zoom, so okay, here we go. We're gonna listen to this.
What is going on with Balenciaga? The brand has received a lot of backlash on their recent campaign, which saw children with teddy bears wearing bondage gear. Their controversial ad used child models and got them to pose with teddy bear bags dressed like this. But it doesn't stop there. Balenciaga has also come under fire for its spring 2023 campaign, where one of their bags was placed near a Supreme Court document from 2008 about child pornography laws. The brand did issue an apology about its latest ad, saying it strongly condemns abuse of children in any form and that it'll take action against those who created the set. And over the spring campaign, Balenciaga is even suing its own production company North 6, as well as the set designer, for more than £20 million. Balenciaga ambassador Kim Kardashian has also responded by saying she's shaken and that she's re-evaluating her partnership. But people around the world really aren't happy and have even been burning their Balenciaga items. So can the brand ever recover?
All right. Wow. So here's my kind of my Achilles heel. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I try to give them over and kind of more abundance in the kind of benefit of the doubt kind of thing. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not missing something, and that, I'm always like, okay, well, what if I misunderstood this, or what if I don't have all this information or whatever. And so you want to be very careful there.
Right.
This does not. I've run out of benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
Okay. There is a printout of the court case that struck down child pornography restriction laws on the table. What? I mean,
yeah, man, that's my thing. That's my thing. It's like that was a conscious decision. There's no argument around it. You got nothing for me to try to explain that away. You have nothing. You can't present me anything. And I don't even have eloquent enough words other than, yeah, this was on purpose. And I think the designer himself came out and issued an apology through Twitter. And he said something very key. He said, as much as I like to provoke thought through my work, and then he tried to backtrack on the thing that he did and try to denounce any child abuse and whatever. But so he admits he is promoting a thought. He is trying to get you to think of something, if not consciously, subconsciously.
Yeah.
But why that, man?
Yeah. Do you think that these? So we're gonna get into it. Do you think that there are people out there who understand that the masses kind of absorb stuff even subconsciously, right?
Yes.
Especially in Hollywood and all these media organizations, they know that if you can just kind of pepper this stuff throughout society, people don't have to make a conscious decision about it. And ultimately that would be the ideal thing to do, right? If you want to do some sort of social engineering thing, you kind of pepper this stuff throughout society. School boards, Hollywood, Disney, that's what you'd want to do. You want to just gradually frogs in a pot, kind of just easily, steadily do it.
You're saying something that I literally just wrote down as we were just watching that video. I call it the goalpost. And it reminds me of what Jordan Peterson talked about, the encroachment that bigger powers tend to do. Is basically a little bit of a step up towing the line, and then the outrage takes place. Like, whoa, what are you doing? Then what they do is they step back. But we don't recognize that we've just been moved back about an inch or two, right? Very subtle, insignificant. Until the more they keep towing the line, you realize you're further back than you first started. It was an analogy I was talking about with someone, where I remember we were on a beach one time, we were having a good time, and we're in the water and we're playing some sort of Frisbee game or whatnot. My family is up here, we're right here. And before you know it, we were somewhere real far down the water. And in my mind, we were in the same spot the entire time. But in reality, no, we've been moved by the waves, by our moving, jumping, and just the competition we had without realizing it. And so that's how I see this. I don't think Balenciaga's sorry. I just think that they test the line and now they know what they got to do. It's business, right?
Yeah.
But another thing you mentioned with the peppering, I work in sales. So I understand the thing of psychology within the human mind and how to kind of get people to agree without necessarily agreeing. Right. Like consciously, but you guide the conversation. I feel like we are in this one big ploy of a marketing scheme. With this disgusting ideology. We all hate it. We all oppose it, but it's almost like, but we're getting further along into this thing. You know, so that's, so all that to agree with you, man. Yeah. I feel like the goalpost is just little by little, they're just pushing more and more.
Yeah. I was wondering, okay, so my line of work, I work for a really big organization. If I were to say it on the podcast, everyone would know what organization this was. And I try to think about, okay, in these big corporate settings, is it possible that the higher ups are the ones that made this call, or do they delegate authority such that, this person can make this call about this ad campaign, or this person can, and so those sort of thoughts are going through my head. I'm like, okay, regardless of whether or not the senior leadership knew, and Balenciaga itself as an umbrella corporation, was completely intent upon, pushing this whole thing. They have people in their organization that have worldviews, that have ideas that are going to be pushed. I think the news article says that Balenciaga is suing that contractor, that company, or whoever they contracted to do that ad campaign. But it gets to the point of what Christ in Capital and what Chaos and Christ is all about. The worldviews are going to come out. Like you cannot be a neutral player in anything you do. Your worldview and your values and things that you hold dear and the things that you prioritize are going to come out in the world. And so whether that's prioritized from the top or delegated from the top down, and there's individual decision makers within that organization doing that, it doesn't matter. You still have this worldview, these values that are pulsing through society, pulsing through this organization, that are coming out, right? And so that's what we're seeing. And so I think it's more of a broader thing. I think the idea of sex, and I mean sex as in this huge beast that has tentacles in everything, is a huge player in just the whole global society. So I want to list off some things that we've seen. You mentioned this a little bit earlier. I want to list off a few things where sex, or the kind of central theme of sex, has become a big thing in recent years. So since the sexual revolution of the 60s, and farther back than that, but especially since the 60s and the sexual revolution, we have pre and extramarital sex as kind of a casual thing, right? It's almost like a prerequisite for dating and marriage and that sort of thing. Abortion, right? We want to throw off the responsibility that sex has, or the risks that sex has tied to it. Pornography, right? It's a perversion of the sexual relationship that God intended for man and woman. You've got transgenderism, right? Huge spike in transgenderism. Gender confusion and the flattening of gender roles. So this whole idea of like pronouns and all that stuff, it's this idea of like flattening gender. There are no differences between men and women. There are no differences. There's no dynamics between the two sexes. It's just everyone's exactly the same, right? That's a rebellion against God's design in the world. You've got homosexuality and these pride parades, right? Then you've got drag story time, right? When you have drag queens, taking off the whole idea that men should be masculine, or they should have this distinct characteristics from women, and kind of playing that whole like confusion thing. And then you've got child drag shows. It's another one. Then you've got sexualized curricula in schools, right? And the books. And I heard someone the other day, they got upset because they were like, it's so silly that these parents are getting upset in school board meetings. I mean, and her thing was she thought that they were trying to get banned To Kill a Mockingbird, which I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I'm like, okay, probably there's someone out there wanting to get banned To Kill a Mockingbird, maybe for like racial reasons, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like disgusting books, like sex books. And then you've got pedophilia, right? The rise of the Epstein phenomenon, and the push for minor attracted persons, right? And just the whole kind of broader thing of sexualization of children, which we got to the Balenciaga thing.
Right.
Sex is huge. And I think our enemy, Satan, knows that getting at sex and all of its kind of tentacles and all the ways that it works its way out in the world is a huge tool that can be used to strike at God himself. So yeah, that was me being long-winded because I had that list going. It's like there's just a lot.
Yeah, and it's the progression. It's the progression. It's the LGBTQ and then the plus sign. The plus sign is the nefarious thing. That's the like, what is the plus sign? What does that mean? Well, it goes on. It just continues on. And whatever goes, right? We live in a society that's it's post-Christian, postmodern. And so if we can just live about our lives saying that this is my truth, you have yours, then what else? There is no moral capacity that restrains you in one direction, where everyone understands this is sacred. We do not do this. We don't cross this line. Well, not with that kind of ideology. And so, yeah, you're going to get things like Balenciaga, which is why we should have known this. I mean, even from 2020 on up, we have been preparing for this whole pedophilia, minor attractive persons, which is just pedophiles in my, words. Which is,
but it's an orientation, right? It's just
yeah. I'm sorry, it's an orientation. You don't mean harm. It's just you can't control that.
Can't help it. I mean,
it's absurd.
Right.
Absurd. That is a distortion of God's world, of his law, of what his word teaches. But of course, in a postmodern world, we don't want anything to do with God's law, his word, and his purpose. That would just impose on the very thing that you are saying is my orientation. So that's really the whole thing. It's a rebellion against the one true God. Yeah, they won't say that, and they probably wouldn't, like consciously, but we know deep down, and the root of it all, it's a war against God. Yeah, it's saying that we can do it better than you in some weird fashion. But yeah, that's the progression. Yeah, and then,
I was just gonna say it's a striking at the image of God, because the image of God is wrapped up in this whole idea of male and female. What is male and female? How did they relate to one another? What is intimacy like between the two sexes? All of that. Yeah, it does. It strikes at God's image.
Exactly. And if you can confuse people's identity based on their sexual preferences, you wreak chaos, right? Which is my favorite word, but you wreak that, and that's what you get. And there's a reason why the Lord would tell us, one, that sexual immorals do not inherit the kingdom of God, but also when he was talking to his people in the Old Testament about not worshiping the same God that the Canaanites worshiped, there was a very serious implication to that. They worshipped a god known as Baal. And so this is my conspiracy thing now. Balenciaga, with the tape on the picture that they had there, they had it like a bit of a misspelling. One, the tape was like a crime scene tape, which is well, that's interesting. And then they had the whole Baal thing, and I was like, if anyone knows anything about who Baal is in the Old Testament, what type of god that Canaanites were worshiping, then is it much of a coincidence? I don't know, but I digress. I just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll share I'll share my conspiracy theory. So, as a backstory, so Genesis 6 says that the sons of God went down to the daughters of men and did the whole sex thing. I know there's discussion and arguments about whether the sons of God are the sons of El or the sons of Israel.
Right.
I think it's the sons of God, who are spiritual beings.
Right.
who went down and rebelled against God's order, his design, right? Sexually.
Yep.
And they transgressed his intention, which was, spiritual beings having sexual relations and sex with human women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just a little side note, this is the start of Goliath's lineage. Anyways, that's a side point.
Was it like the Nephilim, I think they call
it?
The
Nephilim and the Rephaim. Anyways, so there's a spiritual a rebellion going on as well as it relates to sex, right? That has happened, whether you say that's ongoing or whether that happened in the past. We know that that's a category that can take place.
Mm-hmm.
And so my conspiracy theory with this whole Jeffrey Epstein, Balenciaga thing is that there were a ton of people who were implicated in a Jeffrey Epstein thing, right?
Yep.
And they are trying very hard to normalize in some capacity, whether that's higher ups pulling levers and making decisions about what we need to pepper into society as it relates to pedophilia or minor attracted persons, or if there's really a spiritual kind of component going on where like it's kind of the spirit of the age kind of thing.
Yeah.
I do think that someone or something is trying to normalize pedophilia at high levels and trying to push it into society. And I think there are a lot of very powerful people who have enough power to make some decisions like that can kind of start pushing those things.
Yeah.
So that's my conspiracy theory.
I actually agree with the conspiracy theory. I do. It's I don't know if it's conspiracy is like this planning that's supposed to be happening behind the scenes, and then the theory is just like it's just your idea of what it could be, but not being true. But man, there's been so much evidence out there that at this point I feel like it's just true. Like I say conspiracy theory because you never know, and you don't want to like label yourself there. But come on, look the writing's on the walls, man. Like it's one thing is, and I don't want to go too far off tangent here. But with Jeffrey Epstein's aide, which was Ghislaine Maxwell, something like that, they threw the book at her for 20 years, but that was it, man.
Yeah.
There's no, and now she has names. She has a lot of connections. This should have been something that should have wrapped our minds for a while until we figured out the truth, but we're not. And then I don't know what makes me more upset. The fact that they are definitely trying to hide that and push that to the side and just give us a little bit, hey, she's got 20 years, we should be happy with that. Or the fact that us as a society aren't still asking the questions about this. We keep moving from one topic to the other topic when we have this. But anyway, that's kind of my frustration. I'll stop from there.
I hope it comes out. I hope justice is served on the whole Epstein thing. I'm in the same boat. I'm frustrated. I think a lot of people are frustrated. I think it is a pretty unifying thing, though.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, like everyone seems to be on the same boat. Like this was a bad guy. Something nefarious took place, and something's being covered up, or at least being attempted to be covered
absolutely.
up.
Absolutely.
So, okay, cool. So now that we got all of our conspiracy theories out, and we're we've dived into that. We've done our complaining.
Right.
Let's talk about you and what you do kind of as a side business. I know you're taking on an entrepreneurial role, or at least kind of taking those first steps. And you're a fitness trainer,
right?
Yes. Or fitness, I guess that's what you call it. What is this chaos resistance fitness? How did it start? What was kind of the thought process behind it?
Yeah. So I've always been a big gym rat. I've been doing this whole gym thing for 10 plus years. It's been my thing. I did get involved with it in the past where I was working for a gym. I was a personal trainer, and then I got into the business side of it. It was cool. I actually eventually left it and started working from home in for a different company in sales, but I still loved it. But around the year 2020, when everything just kind of took place, I've been a Christian for many years, but I was in a bit of a stupor, I would say. I was going through my own things, but 2020 really woke me up because I started automatically seeing what was happening as far as what we've been talking about, as far as basically totalitarianism, which is like the key word I tend to use. And I grew angry and wanted to fight. But I knew that the truth really lays in Christ and his word, and that's the truth. So I went on this kind of thing, right? Like I just wanted to I couldn't help it. I couldn't help talking about it. And I just needed to feel like I was doing something, even though I didn't have an audience. I wasn't doing much of anything. I just decided to go for it. So I started a podcast. I named it 3 different things at some point, and then I finally landed on Chaos and Christ. And as I was doing Chaos and Christ, I was able to talk about a lot of things that I find very passionate about, which is really exposing lies, telling the truth in different facets and areas. But I started to get to the point where I was like, how do we fight tyranny? Like literally, like I can't go to a political area or place and then say, I'm going to fight you. Like we're not in that time. Right.
Right.
But there are ways that I believe God has revealed through his word that we can do faithfully that is an opposing to tyranny. And so I kind of based that on Psalms 37. I remember reading that and finding deep comfort, because the chapter there is basically telling us to be faithful and remain where you are in the land, subdue it, grow, grow your family, trust in him, trust that even though you see the wicked there and they look like they're established, that God is the ultimate say and he has everything in full control. And so we shouldn't just stop in fear and not do something.
Right.
So I thought, well, this podcast is something I'm going to continue on, and I will talk about these things, but I really want to help people. I really want to help men specifically, because I feel like in our country, that is the biggest attack as well, is on the masculine portion. Because if there are no strong men in our society, then you have a docile society,
right.
Confused, weak men that can be taken over. And ultimately, though people hate the patriarchy, the government seeks to stand as one. They seek to position themselves. So I realized that I needed to figure out, how can I help them? How can I start something, start a business that, one, helps my family, but also I can grow to help others, bring work to their lives. They can work with me, gain full employment, and then give back to the economy, but with a service or product that truly is good, that truly will help. And I just landed back onto my passion with fitness. And I realized that their testosterone levels are lower than ever before in history. We're a little bit more softer than ever before. And we're also, and excuse my words, but this is kind of how I think, we're also like a nation of bastards, right? Like I didn't grow up with my father. And so I understand how important it is for male figures who act like men are to the lives of children and sons and generations to come. And so one way I can say that I can help someone is to help them get into shape, help them regain that ability to move, to lift, to be strong, to be dangerous, and essentially not to be a toxic man to throw his weight around, but to be a man who can control that danger in a way where he's peaceful. He walks in the fear of the Lord, but don't you dare mess with him and his family.
Yeah, isn't that what Peterson says? He says, you as a man should be a monster.
Yes, I love that, man. Yeah, I love that. Like, yeah, you want to be a warrior in a garden, essentially, is what he was saying.
Yeah. I like that.
You want to be a warrior in a garden, right? Like you're taking care of the garden, you're working with your hands, but if the wolf comes to destroy the things that you've been working on, you want to be able to defend that and be strong. And so that's where that came from, right? And for me, the theme is chaos, because whether we had 2020 happen or not, we are in a perpetual state of chaos when we are living outside of the will of God. And even if you're a Christian, you're in chaos because we're in a fallen world. And so you have to deal with that. But I want to redirect men and realize that, yes, we want to do the hard thing. Yes, we want to develop strength, a chest, kind of like C.S. Lewis talked about, which that's another quote I really love, where we are developing a nation of men without chest, no enterprise. I want to help be a part of that, while at the same time we want to recognize that resistance to tyranny ultimately is resistance to tyranny of sin, resistance to tyranny of your living for yourself and your self-pleasure. and turning back to Christ. So I have a lot of plans for that. I want to help men build muscle, lose weight. I think that's a good thing. But ultimately I have more things down the line that I with the, with God's grace will come to fruition. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think, personally, when we talk about the throwing off of like personal responsibility and discipline, right? In the economic realm, the political realm, and society, like we're averse to our responsibility and to discipline that it takes to, master yourself. You got to start with yourself. Mm-hmm. Self-government is first, right? If you don't have self-government, you can't govern your family. If you can't govern your family, you can't govern, the spheres on out after that. And fitness is the first one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was reading, you mentioned a couple of them. Testosterone levels are going down.
Yeah.
We're getting soft. Grip strength is going down.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, to me, it's like, wow, our grip strength is going down. Jeez.
Yeah. Grip strength is going down, which, okay, maybe in past generations, they're not sitting at a computer all day. There's lots of men who are like out doing stuff, but still the idea is that we're getting weaker physically. Right. Testosterone levels. Read an article that, what is it? As of 2021, in most states, like the vast majority of states, there's like between 30 and 40% obesity. Right. That's crazy. And it's been on the incline for a long time. And they're worried now because for some reason, it seems like our caloric intake has not necessarily increased that much.
Yeah.
But obesity is going up. And so they're trying to figure out what's going on. Like, what is that? Like, what's going on? So what do you think? Is it laziness? Is it diet? Combination of both? What do you think?
I'm going to say it's definitely a combination of both, right? Because we are living in, like, me personally, I can do everything from home. Like, I work from home. I can do school from home. I can get groceries delivered to me. I don't have to leave.
Right.
And I've definitely done it a couple of times. I'm not gonna lie. So I mean, we are definitely in a state of convenience and ease that you have to really challenge yourself to break out of that, right? Because it's just right at the fingertips. So that sounds very older generation of me, but I mean, I see it, like it is what it is. It is what's going on. So there is a level of slothfulness that we are dealing with in our country, because with technology, with our advancements, which is beautiful, got nothing against it. I think these are good things. We also need to know how to practice self-control. We need to be able to understand that there are things that even the scriptures teach us, right? That we are to go out and work hard. I'm someone who doesn't provide, right, for his family is worse than a sinner or unbeliever. Stuff like that. So it's like we can have it all provided for us, but you need to learn how to step out and actually do the thing that's hard, voluntary hardship. Because yes, you're right. Back in the day when we weren't living in this time, you had to get out there to work, to feed your family. And most of the time it was hard labor work.
Yeah.
So it kept you in shape. It kept you under the sun, which is another thing that's very important. Like we were getting a little bit more vitamin D than we are now. So that's that. Now the diet. I also believe there's maybe this may be conspiracy, but I think there's also something nefarious with our food, particularly in America. There's a lot of additives, chemicals, ingredients that are not good for the body. I'm thinking of high fructose corn syrup. I'm thinking of seed oils, which is something that I've been seeing people are talking about a little bit more often and are becoming a little bit more aware of. These are put into our food. And then convenience and ease is still a thing that we enjoy, right? So we're going to buy food that we can do like that. I can microwave it. I can order it.
Yep.
So it is a combination of both. It is our diet. It is the nutrition. And it is us not willing to do something a little bit uncomfortable, in which in our day, like, it's almost funny because back then, I mean, cooking your own meals back then was like, that's a normal thing. Now it's like, do I want to? I can order from Uber Eats. Like, it's just, it's where we're at, man. So yeah, I think it's both, to be quite honest.
I think so. Here's the way I kind of conceptualize this whole thing. We are intended to be people who go out into the wilderness and subdue it, right? Mm-hmm. And that, you can think about that spiritually, physically, however you want. That's the kind of theme that God wants us. That's the kind of theme that we're taming the wilderness, essentially.
Right.
And that is gonna make you bleed. It's gonna hurt you. It's gonna build you up. It's gonna make your muscles sore, spiritually and physically. Right. Yeah. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. And so when we obtain these great gifts of technology that help us do things easier, that's not meant for us to cash in on that and just rest and coast our way out. That's meant to, okay, I've got this technology now that can do this so that I can go over here and do the harder thing. Right. So you can divert your responsibility and you can push the wilderness, the thorns, in another area or in another way, or the more difficult parts of life. All right. It frees us up to tackle those. And so there's that passage in, I think it's Deuteronomy 32, where it says that Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked. and it's basically Jeshurun is it's kind of a poetic term for Israel, saying like you're blessed or you're like wealthy, right?
Right.
And Jeshurun, Israel, had been blessed. They had been awesome, like they had received all these blessings from God, and they had waxed fat.
Right.
They had gotten fat and their bellies were full.
Right.
And they forgot God.
Exactly.
Right? And that's not a good thing. It's not
no, it's not a good. It's funny. That's basically us. we got fat, and we just start forgetting the Lord. There's a passage in Proverbs, can't remember the exact chapter or whatnot, but it's almost like a prayer where he's praying to God and says, Lord, give me enough so that I can, obviously not forget you and be grateful for you, but don't give me too much or too little, where too little causes me to steal and too much causes me to forget. And it's something I want to live by, right? Because as an entrepreneur at heart, you always want to strive for the growth of your business. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Profit's good. It's good. And we can have a whole different conversation about that.
Capitalist here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a capitalist at heart, but at the same time, it's understanding that I live under the kingship of Christ, and I know my heart is wayward. I know my heart is easily looking for comfort, right? And self-pleasure. And in our society here in America, we have gone fat. We have gone very convenienced, and we are forgetting God. We are forgetting that we have responsibilities regardless of our technological advancements. And another one of those responsibilities, which unfortunately I feel, especially some in the church, they look to that in all things that is good: work, vocation, business, family, marriage, right? Those are good. But our bodies, for some reason, we have this disconnect. It's like a agnostic kind of thing where, like, it is. Okay, the spirit good, body bad, don't do nothing for the body. And so we don't steward it. We don't steward it well. And I think that is a bad idea. And I truly believe we will be held accountable for that. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but I really do feel that way.
I do. No, I do. I think, I mean, there are passages in scripture where, we're intended to feast, right? We're intended to enjoy God's creation, enjoy good food, enjoy a beer, do all those things. But we're still back to this whole thing where we're called to take dominion, right? And it's not just in a spiritual sense, not just, this kind of lofty Gnostic kind of thing in the clouds somewhere. It's here, it's now, it's make things better, starting with yourself, like be better.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. And like, I posted something up not too long ago. And my words could be a little bit like there. So I try my best, but it is what it is. But there was an argument from a brother in the Lord that he didn't quite agree with what I had to say. And his thing was, well, I don't see why we would have to prioritize, the gym when I would rather spend time with my wife and kids and family. But I was like, I get that. But then you're basically saying that it is not important to you. That's all you're saying, is that your body isn't important to you. And you're trying to use the seemingly good things we all in society have accepted is good, right? Yep. Being, with your family, being a father. Hey, man.
And your wife and your kids want your body as well.
Exactly. So it's like, hey, man, I mean, that's why I'm telling you this. Like, this is why I am pushing for fitness, that men should get strong, lose some body fat, and have a physique that not only looks good, but can actually be capable, right, of just keeping up at the very least, right? Because when you are present with them, you want to be able to say, I am fully present. I can engage. If my kids want to engage in some sport activity, I can do it without coughing up a lung or feeling like I've just ran 5 miles when it's really I'm in the backyard. Like, and we don't think about these things. It's just we've thrown it away. But and on another side, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because I honestly believe that this is also an intentional ploy against men in our culture, especially within the church, to look at fitness as a vain thing and throw it away. Because again, if you can have men that are weak, more susceptible to injury, health decline, where they have
on
right, they're disabled, they have to get disability from the government. You create dependency off that, and then you have a docile, weak society of men that won't stand up and fight the good fight. And I mean, there's so many things there, man. I can talk for hours about that.
Start with self-government. It's all downhill from there if you don't.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so as we're kind of closing this out, one last question, and I think this would be good advice or a good takeaway from the episode, just to kind of get your thoughts, and maybe someone listening will take this to heart. Okay, so let's say, posit the scenario, someone wants to lose weight. They're trying to lose weight, trying really hard to lose weight. Okay, in the percentage of which one's most influential and which one would most get someone towards that goal, working out or diet, which one helps the most? Which one gives you the most legwork, right? Is it a kind of a 60-40 thing? What do you think?
Right. Yes. Oh man. Okay. So usually,
and the goal is losing weight, not
losing weight. Right. So usually the thing that's hard for people to start, but can then start and then stick a little bit long with, is the working out. But it's the nutrition, the diet that really throws people off. One, it's because, well, we bought into a lot of fads and marketing about diets and whatnot. And so a lot of these things don't work. And some of them are just extreme and out there. It really can be simple, but there is a level of discipline there. Nutrition is important. I mean, some of my best times where I saw my physique change wasn't so much what I was doing in the gym, right? You can do, honestly, look, to be very honest, you can do anything in the gym. And if you like it and it's posing a challenge to your body, then you're going to burn calories. Adaptation is going to take place. But if you are not taking care of what you put in your mouth outside of that gym, you won't see much of a physical difference. And if you're putting bad stuff in your body may even look good, but internally you can't even hang. Yeah. So I personally believe that one, you can't do one without the other. And if you're really trying to lose weight, resistance training is very vital. But if your nutrition is whack, you can get strong, and you can, I guess, develop muscle, but ultimately you'll still look the same. You'll still look the same. I've seen that with many guys for many years. They come into the gym faithfully, but for some reason they don't look different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can't use the gym as an excuse for having the cheeseburger later.
Yeah. And so here's my thing. I enjoy a good cheeseburger. I enjoy a good beer. I really do. But it goes back to the self-control thing. In our society, we don't have that, right? Like, we just tend to, once we like it and we taste it, we just keep doing it and going more and more. And then we develop this shame mechanism. So, oh man, I failed. Might as well just keep rolling. And one day turns into, 2 weeks.
And the holidays make it even worse.
And then you make the excuses because, well, my grandma just invited me over. My family, they get upset if I deny, the pumpkin pies and stuff like that. So, whatever. But those are excuses. You just want to engage, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with a good burger, maybe some pizza and maybe a donut. I enjoy it all, but I've learned how to cut it off when it's done, right?
Yeah.
And then when it's done, and I get back on track. Now that takes a deeper level of discipline, and really, it could be spiritual because there's something else going on inside you that you're struggling with. So that's my goal. My goal is ultimately to help men, even women too, but mainly my heart's for men, to we're going to go deep, right? We're going to train, we're going to work hard, but we're going to go a little bit deeper. What's going on here, And so nutrition. Ultimately, brother, you asked me a question. Nutrition is my main thing, but never neglect the training. That's still very important. Yep.
All right. Okay. So run a little bit longer time. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to sign up for Chaos Resistance Fitness or just a podcast? Where do they get you?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram at Alexsy Felix. That's my main profile. If you're looking to hear the podcast, you can go on anywhere you typically get your podcast from, or you can just go on chaosinchrist.com. And then if you really want to talk about Chaos Fitness, Chaos Resistance Fitness, just reach me on Instagram, DM me. I like to at least have a conversation with you and, kind of get to know each other from there. And I can send you whatever you need as far as how we can get that started. But yeah, you can find me there.
Okay. Awesome. Love it. I'll paste all that stuff in the show notes. Until next time, everybody, go love God, love neighbor, and build something. Talk to you later.
Take care, guys.